Well, I just dropped Dave off at school, and I'm on my way over to the Meadows right now, and I'm qualifying Sparkling Volo this morning. I'll be there in time to go last trip with him. This is the tactical landing colt that we bought 2 weeks ago. I rather liked how he trained the other day, but as I said to everybody, training is not racing, is not qualifying. You know, there's 3 different levels. Training is not going behind the gate with other horses and qualifying and racing, and qualifying is not like racing. So we're trying to graduate him from where he trained, and I was happy with what I saw that day to putting him behind the gate with other horses and having him qualify in a confident manner with no hobbles on. He's had them on virtually his whole life. And then obviously the third step next week would be to have him to go and race. And again, in such a manner that he'd be comfortable and confident, because I won't be there to drive him. I'm going to be in Harrisburg next week. I'll talk about Harrisburg in just a minute. But I was a little sluggish today getting out of bed. Amy and I stayed up till, well, she dozed on and off, but stayed up till 2:45 in the morning watching the entirety of the Blue Jays game. I think it was actually closer to 3 o'clock. It was one of those games where your team lost, but you were still left with the feeling of, man, that was a great ball game. I know I just had this sense that it was only a matter of time, right? We couldn't capitalize, the Blue Jays couldn't capitalize on a number of runners in scoring position. And then when you were looking at what was left for the roster, you're getting into the 18th inning, right? Virtually 2 ball games. And then nobody scored a run from the 7th inning. So 12 straight innings of scoreless baseball and into the middle of the night in Los Angeles. And it was, obviously, I'm sure it'll wear on the teams today, but down to their last players. And who would have thought? It's just one of those things. I think, you know, the most interesting thing of all was that the last guy with the scraggly red beard that they brought in, the way the announcers portrayed this situation was, this was the last man on their roster, and even he was a little surprised he got called up. And it was a situation where expectations were low. The situation was, you know, extremely volatile, but expectations were, you know, the best you could do would hope that this guy could pitch and hold the Jays off. And he threw some wild pitches, and I'm like, oh, it's only a matter of time the Blue Jays are going to hit this guy. He settled in and he gassed everybody for 4 innings. Struck out Vladimir Guerrero twice, Dalton Varsho twice, and those were 2 of our best players on the field. Ernie Clement, you guys hear me talk about him all the time. He got him to fly out twice. Virtually went, to say he went above and beyond would be a disservice. What he did was, the probability of that happening in that particular point in the game was so low. And we had Eric Lauer pitching, who was one of our starters all year, moved into the bullpen and was a fairly effective pitcher, and he gave them like 70 pitches. Quality baseball. And then they have to bring in Brendan Little. Now, I've been critical of Brendan Little, same as a lot of people that watch the Blue Jays are. You know, he's our most vulnerable player. I don't want to say he's our worst player, because this is a major league team. All these guys are good players. But he is easily our most vulnerable player. And to ask him to pitch against Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts, I think he actually pitched to Ohtani the last time he came up. You know, he ended up walking him, but he pitched to him anyway. But Mookie Betts, he got him to fly out. And then Freddie Freeman, good Canadian boy, by the way. Freddie Freeman hit a bomb to center field, and it was almost like a sense of putting a wounded animal out of their misery. It was just, there was nobody left on the bench. There was literally no players left on either bench. The difference was when you stacked up the Los Angeles Dodgers definitely from inning 12 to 18, they were infinitely better than what the Toronto Blue Jays had to offer. There was no Bo Bichette, there was no Kirk, there was no Springer. Anyway, the game was an incredible game. One of those games where Ollie was asleep. Obviously, everybody was asleep. But one of those games where you just remember where you were when it happened. And, it can only be made more intense if it was a Game 6 or a Game 7 and it ended the World Series. It did not, obviously. They're going to play again tonight. But it was just an incredible baseball game. For those of you, obviously, that don't watch baseball, you're like, all right, come, let's move it along. Let's go. I get it. But for those of you that do watch it, it was something to behold for sure. So a loss last night for the Blue Jays. We had that feeling all day long. I had bid on maybe 6 horses on Gate and preferred yesterday. Got none of them. Now somebody messaged me and said, did you notice that looks like Money's brother was selling? Yeah, I did notice that actually. I was bidding on him. I was about to say I was the underbidder. I was not. I was out at 15. The sticking point I had, it didn't matter. Here's a former $425,000 yearling. And for all of us that are just mere mortals, to say 450,000, I think actually it was 425 for an animal, a yearling pacer or a trotter or whatever, is insanity and hard to quantify. But that's what he cost. And then for him to be a 4-year-old and have, 50, 60,000 on his card? I think he was 4, he might be 3. I think he was 4. And trot nice, but there's the difference between a nice trotter and his brother. Looks like Money. He's closing in on 600,000, and this guy, who's a good-looking, flashy trotter, shows a lot of breaks, and he's made like 50, 60. Problem I had with him was it didn't look. I looked at his photo, and when I looked at his photo, he's wearing those high trotting boots with the straps at the top of them. So the extra high trotting boots, so he interferes. He hits his jacks. His brother does sometimes too. Hits his jacks. And I think the transition coming out of the turns, from the turn to the straightaway, that's probably where he's most vulnerable, where he's made most of his breaks. So going in and out of turns, that's when they switch their leads, and a lot of them will get up on top of those jacks. So the 6 wins was the sticker, right? And not just that, it was the sticking point was the 6 wins and the fact that he likely wasn't going to get around Northfield Park. The uncertainty that surrounded this particular horse just made it really difficult for me to go very much deeper on him. I had to think to myself, worst case, what is he? 12 claimer, 15 claimer. Best case, what is he? Non-winners a 6 at Dayton. Probably not going to get a lot of racing into Northfield Park. Meadows doesn't have a whole lot. 20 claimer non-winners of 8. But that's no joke. They went 55 the other day, or 56, right? That's where we had raced, looks like our Manhattan Money, who didn't sell, by the way. Somebody asked me, well, you wouldn't take 15 for him? No. First off, no. Secondly, that was my bid at 15. And I wouldn't take 14 for him. So no. I mean, that's the horse I'd be looking at for 14 or 15. If Manhattan Money just needs a break or doesn't have a class right now, we'll give him 3 weeks off. I had a great email from one of our partners, Jim, yesterday, and he said, Anthony, if Foxy Seaside's class is a little bit tough, she's a little bit rough, and she's got 20 plus starts, do you think it would help to maybe give her a few weeks while you wait for that class to soften up a bit? That's exactly what was going through my mind the other night, and that's exactly what we may do. I don't know yet. We'll see. But there's maybe 2 or 3 horses in that exact same situation. So we'll see as we get into the fall a little deeper. Honestly, of the horses I was bidding on yesterday, I thought I would get 1, if not 2 of them, and we ended up getting none of them. So a little frustrating in that regard. And then as all that is unfolding, in real time, I tune into Corbin, Cumberland Run. Now we had Spitfire Overseas, who'd been relegated to the open trot. And we had Memento Mori off a week, but in a good spot. I hate, when it's muddy, you just want the day to be over with. So I waited a couple hours to text Scotty, and I said, what are your thoughts on the day? He said, well, Spitfire was a little bit rough, maybe the shoes because of the mud, maybe not. He said, but horses don't go from the non-winners of 4,000 to the open and it end up well. I said, you're right, there has to be a ladder to climb, so to speak. We talk about that all the time. And Spitfire mechanically did not look great. It didn't race well yesterday. mostly because he didn't belong in the Open yesterday. He belonged below the Open yesterday. And that's where I expected he would have raced, but he did not. Actually, just got off the phone with the race secretary, and he said, well, the Open pace isn't going to fill in Corbin, which is so shocking. It goes for like, what, 40 grand? It's the last week. It might go for 50 this weekend. Not going to fill. And he said the Open Trot, as of right now, he only need 3 or 4 horses in the Open Trot, which actually bodes well for us. Rather than being the inside in an Open handicap, it'll likely be an Open 2, which means more his cup of tea, especially for right now, and also a better finish for the Corbin season for us with him. Zena Campton was a 3 or 2, but 3 or 3 before, whatever it was, Kentucky sired. Again, a mixed bag, and it wasn't going to suit her very well. It just seemed like a stupid thing to do. So there was no need to chase the money. I just thought if she fit a class, she could win. Let's race her. That's not the case. She fit a class where she's going to go on the track 6, 8, 10 to 1. What the hell are we doing? Don't do that. Turn her out. And Memento Mori, Scotty, he said, what was pretty obvious, getting parked the quarter in 27 seconds in the mud. That was a bit of a dagger. There's not much you can do about it. I don't blame him for trying to wiggle into the 3-hole, for not trying to wiggle into the 3-hole. There would have been a 0% chance I would have done that also. Continue to the front. So, 27.57 or 28.57, whatever it was, 125 and 3. Those are pretty torrid fractions for a windy, rainy day. And, especially when the Open, I think, went 55 and 1, if I'm not mistaken. So when it comes to this person in front of me, if you guys have an easy pass, you can just put it on your window and it's fine. Well, this person in front of me, we're driving down the road doing 70 miles an hour, and he or she held their hand out the window with the easy pass in it. Whatever. So Corbin did not go the way we wanted. So the start of the afternoon was frustrating. I didn't get any horses at all. We did not sell Manhattan Money, and then I watched Spitfire Overseas, Memento Mori get beat up a little bit. Spitfire definitely get beat up. He'll bounce back. And then Memento Mori literally got beat up, run the front end pretty hot, and ended up faltering. And again, when it's raining like that and you have one of the favorites, there's a 0% chance. I don't think anybody would have raced that horse any differently. And I don't think the result would have been much different either. I think we got what we were going to get with Maury. The biggest problem we're going to face moving forward for next week is Scotty and I can't be there. That's Monday. That's day 1 Harrisburg. That Spitfire Overseas and Memento Mori are supposed to race. So we're going to need a driver for those two. And I was hoping that maybe, just because the purses are pretty decent and some of those guys are down in Kentucky still, and it's not like there's a whole lot to do on a Monday, that maybe one of them would make their way over to Corbin. It doesn't appear that's the case right now. Who'd be a good fit for both those horses would be Andy Miller. If he was still in... No, what am I talking about? Andy Miller's going to be at the Harrisburg sale too. Maybe Joey Putnam will be available. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's an issue for tomorrow, not for today. So let's talk a little bit more about the day. I watch a lure race now. Ended up, you can't race a lure like that. You can't leave, back her into a 4-hole and shuffle back and ask her to sprint on the end of it. That's just a terrible trip for her. There's not much you can do about it. 27 seconds in first quarter. But, for me, with a lure, I would have her blasting right off the car and get her spotted away 1-2. But that's easy to say in hindsight. Again, it's never fair to judge a race. I can explain it to you, what I saw, the same as you did. But judging Billy or the horse or anybody else in hindsight is just unfair. If the front end collapses and he gets her out second or third over and she's charging on the end of it, wins her second, it's all good. But as it turned out, he gets stuffed on the inside, shuffled back, got out late, and ended up 7th or 8th. Not a great race for her, not a great trip for her, but that is racing, and the ultimate culprit of all that is the fact that you drew the outside. And everybody left. Hot fractions going to the quarter pole and an outside post make it very difficult to do business at Mohawk every time almost, unless you're a layover, which she most certainly was not. She's in a good class, but not a layover just yet. And then I got to Northfield Park oh my God, I was mad. So I get there and there's a horse running around loose, no harness or anything on, just probably get loose from its stall or maybe got away from somebody coming back from Lasix. I look, I see our neighbor, Buck Haller, trying to run down the horse. Buck's a little older, so if he had been able to run down the horse, I would have scratched him because the horse was not in great shape. If Buck, not taking anything away from Buck, but he's not a young man anymore. And we got him cornered, and I grabbed the horse. I get the horse for Buck. Grab the horse. I go to turn him. The horse kind of shimmies away from me and steps right on my right foot, which hurt, but I didn't think anything of it at the time. I get back to the barn. I start putting my suit on. I look, there's blood in my sock. I ripped the top of my toe off. I was frustrated. I was mad. Taped it up like a hillbilly and went to drive. So I raced Great Ascending. Being off 2 weeks, did I overdrive him? Yeah. It's not like we can't train him up hard. And I know that too. This isn't hindsight stuff. This is real time. Do you really want to be on the front with this horse stuff? I just thought that I made front 26-4, 27, and you can't like steal a quarter with Great Ascending because it's tough to get him started up again. So really 26-4, 54-4 is right up his alley. Now this is where the being off 2 weeks comes into play. The second favorite comes first over. I think he was the second favorite, might have been the favorite, Chris Lems. I thought he'd give me a little more of a tussle, so I was kind of at Great Ascending the whole way down the backstretch. As it turns out, he never got past my wheel. But my biggest danger was Aaron. If we can get to the head of lane, I'm first or second. I can't. He jumped on me in the turn, where Great Ascending pace is good, but runs in a little bit. And he's a big boy on a half-mile track. And Aaron jumped on him right when he was the very most vulnerable. And he ended up fading and finishing fourth. Now, if he's tight, I'm 1-2 for sure. But he wasn't tight. So, but again, that's on me. I know that going to the quarter pole. I could feel Aaron kind of breathing down my back when he cut me loose. He wanted to remove. It felt like he wanted to remove anyway. And I just let him sail and left him in the 2-hole, which in hindsight was exactly what I shouldn't have done. So that was Great Ascending. He raced very, very well though, and he's always tough. He'll come out swinging again next week. And then we got the Winter Soldier. I knew I couldn't get to my initial plan was to leave out of there, get away in the 2-hole or even on the front and race him much like I raced Great Ascending, quite frankly. The 7-horse looped us all kind of out of the gate. Greg Grismore's horse could leave every bit as much as Winter Soldier and more going into the first turn, and then Aaron was pushing from the inside. Now, Mac Morris Hanover, I don't know if I've ever driven him, but I know I've raced against him quite a bit. And nice horse, bit of probably a 25 or 30 claimer, but when you start getting into that mixed bag of the open backup class, the half-mile racing factors in, right? You have the inside, you're a front runner, 2 of the favorites are softened up going around the first turn. The ball is squarely in the court of Mac Morris Hanover and Aaron Merriman at the quarter pole. I know I have to come first over. But I say to myself, geez, I don't know if he's going to be that bad first over. This might be a good spot for him. Not only are the 2 in front of me soft, but Aaron's horse is soft also and is a claimer. If I get him cornered in the last turn, he might get there. The only horse I got to drag into it, who's not a bad horse, is Shamrock behind me. Not a bad horse, but I don't think he can beat me. I saw the last half of the race unfold in the first half of the race. It went exactly how I thought it would. Get Winter Soldier rolling. He had to play a major role too. He did. This is a horse where, if you ask me, he's not a gritty horse. He's not a roll him first over, grind them up, and drive away type horse. But he's a good little horse. Neek flew all the way from Amsterdam this week to go to the Breeders' Crown. Drove over to Northfield Park to look at the babies. Now, I feel bad he didn't get a chance to see them go because he said he was held up at the border. He said the border officials found it odd that he flew from Amsterdam to Canada to watch a horse race and then drive from Canada to the U.S. to look at his horses, only to drive back to Canada. So they hauled him in for some... because I suspect as much curiosity other than anything else. Depending on the border guard, if you've ever come across the border, either don't know anything about horse racing or just assume that it's all thoroughbred racing. but I've had some odd looks. Never been stopped. Amy has been pulled in. I don't know if she's pulled in, but she was read the riot act at the border. Why do you even own one? What is this horse racing stuff? Why do you feel? Why do you and your family get an 01? Why are you coming into the country? Depending on who you get and what you are, visa status wise, you can get grilled a little bit. I remember one of our clients went to Oak Grove, and I was joking because he had like plaid on. Mr. Baxter, he said no, they held him in and were reading him the riot act. But for the most part, I've never had a problem going through. But Neek, I believe he said his name was Neek, the way he pronounced it. I'm not going to butcher your last name. But he had come over, and then I had left the barn around 12:31, and I was doing some errands and waiting to pick up Addie from school at 2:45. And he messaged me he was at the barn, so I circled back and went back to the barn. We walked through the shed rows and talked about the horses that he had and other horses we had. Just talked about horse racing in general. And, I was so glad for him. He went to the races. Yeah, I know the feeling. Went to the races last night and then left right after Winter Soldiers race to go back to Canada. He said he was flying out tonight, but his hotel room was in Guelph, and he didn't want to get back late to the room and whatever. I told him he could have stayed at our place. It didn't matter to me, but he ended up driving all the way back to Guelph last night, and I'm just so happy. Here's a guy that flew all the way from Amsterdam, all the way to Canada, drove all the way over to Ohio just to see his horses, and then stay for a couple of races and watch a horse that he has a piece in, Winter Soldier race. And I was so happy that he got his picture taken last night. Doesn't always work out that way. So our day was not great. It wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad day. The babies went good. I was happy with what I saw in the barn. I had a great update with Jason. Obviously, that's a unique situation where Jason Merriman was hired and was really, just a go-to guy, or a guy that went everywhere, did everything we needed him to do, and now thrust into this situation with a lot more responsibility. And he's done very, very well at it. So when we needed him to pick up the slack, he certainly did. So good job by him with all the horses. But again, last night especially, having the horses ready to go. Greatest ending, race good, as I said. Bit of an overdrive for me. And then Winter Soldier, race tremendous. He has turned out to be such a nice little horse for us. You just take all the Winter Soldiers you can find, that's for sure. So very happy with the way we ended the night. Not super happy with the way we began the day. The no sale on Manhattan Money, the no purchase on all the other horses I was looking at, and then to have the other horses quote, a flame out from Spitfire Overseas, a little bumpy. We'll work on that for this week, and in the backup class, you'll see that gate look a little better than being stretched out the whole way anyway. Memento Mori, again, off 2 weeks, and then doesn't do his best work on the front, but just with such an inclement, horrible day, that was the way he was going to get raced. A bad trip in regards to allure, not much you can do about that, and then greatest ending. An overdrive, but a decent fourth, and then a great way to cap off the night with Winter Soldier. So as I said, on my way over here to go with Sparkling Volo today at the Meadows in the qualifier. I'll make my way back today. We have Arrowhead Hanover starting off the night again, 9-hole. I wouldn't set an alarm to watch the race. How's that? 9-hole with Arrowhead. Just have to wait until we draw better. And as Chris, my partner, said, Greg, it's unbelievable how bad this horse draws. And you're right, it was a terrible draw today for him. For those of you following along, Real Help is actually not our horse now. The horse was delivered to us, and I didn't notice. Jason noticed, and Dr. Latessa noticed that there was a slight injury. Probably happened when he raced his last start, which was the day or 2 days before we bought him. So when we got to the barn, we investigated a little closer and realized there was an injury. I had reached out to at the time, the former owners, who are now the new owners of Real Help, and said, listen, obviously there's an injury here. I can't take this horse. They were good about it. So Real Help will not be racing and will not be our horse moving forward. We have Trosa tonight making his first start on, I don't know if he's ever raced on a half over in Australia. I'm sure he's raced in something comparable. He is a big boy though. he'll be making his first start at Northfield Park. And it's not like I can train him hard and warm him up hard, because he has a tendency to be a bit of a bleeder. So for me to go out and do that would be looking for trouble. Blue Ventura is scratched tonight. We ended up doing some vet work on him. He was a little bit under the weather. It looked like it was just a small bug. Dr. Latessa had him on antibiotics for a few days and said, well, I couldn't do the vet work on him when he was under the weather, and obviously you don't want to race him when he's under the weather. I open up the thing and he's drawn the 8-hole anyway, so treat him up, I guess. As Jason had said, the recommendations of the vet were to treat him up for a few days when we feel that he's healthy, then do the vet work on him and forego racing him this week. So that's exactly what we're going to do tonight with respect to Blue Ventura. But we will finish off our night with our newest horse to race, that is Legal Scholar. Now tomorrow, Tally is her name? Wait, Tally the Tab. Tally the Tab is also eligible tomorrow, which is okay. I think we're going to train her up on Saturday. It looks like Thursday, Friday rain, but Saturday I think I can get on the track before I go to Harrisburg, train her up real hard, get a feel for what she looks like, what she feels like, and then race her on probably next Wednesday. I won't race her, but by the looks of her gait, by the looks of her past races, really shouldn't be that difficult for somebody to jump on and go with her. And that's exactly what we're going to do with Tally the Tab. So that's how things look right now. That's how they look for the rest of the week. Obviously, we're now going to shift gears and our full focus towards Harrisburg 2025. It should be a great sale. It's always a sale where, when we go into Lexington, everything's on the table. Put everything on the table, price them all, let's look at them all, let's do the best we can to get a best value for any horse in the sale. And then we'll build from there. It's almost like we said, okay, I want a map of the entire area. I want to build my house on the best area with the most value. High point, good foundation, and that's exactly what Lexington, Ohio are kind of all about. Let's start to build that foundation and build that house up for 2026. And as we get to Harrisburg, by the time we get to Harrisburg, it's like, okay, we need 2 PA trotting colts. We don't have any New York breds. We never got that high-end pacer, and we do have an appetite for another high-end trotter. So that's our windows and doors, plumbing. Polish the house up, and then after the Harrisburg sale, obviously we move in. So that's the plan for Harrisburg. I've told everybody it's pretty clear what we're looking for, and after counseling and talking to all our clients and all our stakeholders, I can tell you with almost certainty we are going to buy 1 or 2 PA trotting colts. I don't know if we'll get to 3, but again, that will be the softest bucket. If you're out there saying, I think I really like having a trotting colt in Pennsylvania, I really like the program and I want to be a part of it, I would suggest you should probably get in, because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. The high-end pacer will sell out. The high-end trotter will sell out. The New York horse will sell out. The New Jersey pacer will sell out. And what will happen is we're going to buy 2 or 3 trotting colts in Pennsylvania. I'm going to say 2. And the people that own those other buckets are going to buy all those shares up. And then, lo and behold, on Monday morning of the next week, everybody's going to be saying, well, where are the shares for the Harrisburg horses? And there won't be any. It will be important to do what we're supposed to do and stick to the plan. And the plan, I will tell you right now, will be very simple. We are going to buy a high-end type trotter. We are going to buy a high-end type pacer. We are going to buy a New Jersey pacer. We are going to buy a New York bred. And I will tell you right now, the likelihood of it being a trotting filly is high. And then we will have, as I said, 2 or 3 PA trotting colts. And I would hope, and I would ask if everybody wanted to get involved with the trotting colts, because, as I said, one, it would help me a lot, and I certainly know I'm not trying to drum up support, but I am telling you that what I do see happening very likely is those other buckets being sold out, us buying the trotting colts, and by the time I'd even leave Harrisburg or get back to the barn, certainly long before they ever get a harness on, I suspect that everybody that own the buckets will say, hey, I'll take shares of this one or that one or whatever, and there'll be very few, if any, shares left for anybody. So that is how it is. I've told everybody this is going to be a shopping bag sale, but most definitely a supply and demand sale. So that is the plan for Harrisburg. It should be a lot of fun. It's the last big sale of the season. I know that Amy's excited. I'm excited. Happy to get Halloween over with. Get Halloween over with, and then you know what it is. Right as we leave to Harrisburg, you can hear those sleigh bells jingling. It's Christmas season. It is Christmas season. The second Halloween is over. At 12:01 on November 1st, it is officially Christmas season. So with that, I'm going to let you go. Good luck to everybody today, especially interested in Legal Scholar. I think Trosa and him both have a very, very good shot tonight. We'll see how that plays out. In regards to everybody else, Arrowhead's just going to need another week. There's nothing we can do about the post. You know it. I know it. We're just going to have to bite our lips and push through. And that will be it out of our barn for this evening. So as I said, off to qualify Sparkling Polo. I'd love nothing more than to see a sparkling qualifier from him. But we'll see. We'll see. Like what I see from this guy, I'd love to see it work out well this morning. If we have to pivot and go back to hobbles next week, we will. But I don't think we're going to have to. Take care. We'll talk to you all very soon. Have a wonderful start to your Tuesday morning, wherever you might be.